All right, welcome back to Noob School, episode 154. Can you believe it? Today I've got a relatively new friend, but a friend nonetheless, Jake Bennett. Jake, I met him at my daughter Lizzie and son-in-law Mike's wedding, which would have been how long ago? Jake, do you remember?
Was that 2019?
19. That's about 6 years. So 6 or 7 years ago. But we met at the wedding, and gosh, there was hundreds of people there, but we managed to get a good conversation or two in, and really like Jake. And as I've gotten to know him more, understanding how he's becoming, what he's becoming, which is pretty darn impressive. Currently, I'd say you're 31.
How old am I? 33. Getting old.
33. You look younger.
Thank
33,
you.
but you've already. I don't know what you did in high school. I'm guessing. High school. Did you do were you a really good athlete in high school?
Yeah, in high school, I was kind of a walking stereotype. Football, baseball,
All the sports,
Yeah.
and then you went to West Point.
Yes.
And did you play any sports there, or just surviving as a sport?
Surviving is definitely a sport, but also played team handball there. So
Uh,
not quite Division One sport, not quite intramurals, but club level, so in the middle. And we joke it's all the people that, all the washed up football, basketball, baseball players
yeah,
end up on the team handball squad.
yeah. Well, cool. Yeah. Well, that's a place where you've got to be in tip top shape, whether you're on playing the sports or not. But you went there. You became an Army officer. You served 5 years, right?
That's right.
5 years, okay. And along the way, you got a Bronze Star. And we looked it up because none of us were in the Army, but we looked it up before. It's like meritorious service in battle. Is that what that is?
Meritorious service, no valor associated with it, so didn't do anything heroic to earn it. Just did right by my team and the folks I worked around.
You did this for doing a good job.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, still sounds you're probably underplaying it. A Bronze Star sounds pretty good.
a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
but yeah, was part of a good team.
So, so I think one of the questions is, like, where are you from to begin with?
Yeah, so born in Houston, Texas, but did most of my growing up in Virginia. Both my folks worked for Exxon and then ExxonMobil, so
Okay.
I was in Houston when it was Exxon. Then the merger happened, and we moved up to Northern Virginia. I always have to be careful how I answer that question because if you say you're from Virginia, folks from Southern Virginia will say, "Oh, well, you're from Northern Virginia," and if you say you're from the DC area, then the DC natives will come after you for that. So yeah.
Okay. It's very okay. Very. I got it. And why did you decide to go to West Point?
I don't know if I have an inspirational answer to that question. I think at the time, being 16, 17 years old, realized that I was motivated by things in a different way than my peers and felt like going to West Point would be a way to kind of double down on my strengths. People always told me I was a natural leader, still not sure what that means. And then also, like we talked about, was the walking stereotype, big into, football, baseball, a few other sports. And West Point seemed like a place where I could cultivate that leadership side of things while also, kind of exiting my comfort zone and doing something very interesting
Yeah.
in my 20s.
Yeah. Something difficult.
Yeah.
Something difficult. And doesn't everyone have to like be an engineer? Do you have to take a lot of engineering courses to go to West Point?
Yeah, and so I think for that, I never really stood a chance. Both my parents have engineering degrees with their oil and gas background. So majored in systems engineering, which was um, kind of like a jack of all trades
Yeah.
type engineering.
Huh. Yeah. Um, I guess they don't want people like majoring in poetry and then becoming an army officer.
Yeah, so I think like even if you major in like humanities, like English or something like that,
Yeah,
you're still getting a bachelor's in science. So it's like the only like philosophy majors in the world that are still taking like intensive math and science classes along with their philosophy
that's
classes.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
So you got out, and did you go right to business school at Michigan?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I was thinking about getting out of the army, did kind of what I typically do, talk to people who had done it, 2, 3 years ahead of me, heard about this consulting thing and felt like it was a good mix of what I liked in the army, getting to solve problems, work on teams, but in kind of more of a corporate setting. Um, Figured the best way to get my foot in the door and to make sure that I was as prepared as I could be on that first day of consulting work. Business school was the way to go. So yeah, went the business school route.
And then how did you pick Michigan? Why did you go there for business school versus somewhere else?
Yeah, so like a lot of other vets who are transitioning, initially started doing kind of like looking at the list of MBA rankings and just going down the list and saying, hey, I'll apply to these.
Yeah,
But early on in my time, visited Ann Arbor, got to go to University of Michigan for a Saturday football game, and just like fell in love with kind of the student body, the environment, and it helps that one of the guys that I worked with in the army, we deployed to Afghanistan together, was like a year ahead of me. So when I visited him, he was in his first year, and then ended up living with him and a few other guys during my first year, their second year. So
yeah,
I think, going from army into business school was kind of a intimidating proposition, but feeling like even before I was even a student there, I had like some family there, definitely helped push me there.
yeah. Interesting. I think it's an interesting point to dwell on for just a minute. Is you're going from West Point to being an Army officer to like what am I going to do next? And you said I'm talking to, I presume, other Army officers that were a couple years ahead of you that had gotten out a few years ahead of you. What's the landscape look like? What are some good choices? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, you can read all the blogs in the world, watch YouTube videos, read books and things like that, but nothing beats the human experience. And, some of those vets were ones I knew personally, and some are folks that I just kind of randomly reached out to, and they saw that I was also a vet. And so they're willing to talk.
Yeah,
And so when we get into like how Sean and I transitioned into this thing, took a very similar process
yeah,
of talking to folks and hearing about their experience.
yeah. Well, that's kind of how we got back together. Is you just reached out to me as another,
Yeah.
a person who has been buying businesses, for a while that we could talk and discuss things, and it's just a smart thing to do is to find other people that have already done it, pick their brain, and then make your decision.
Yeah, and I think, nowadays there's so much over email and text. Nothing beats the face to face. I know we met on Zoom, but that's kind of the next best thing,
Yeah,
with the best thing being face to face with a coffee or a beer in hand.
yeah, I agree. Good experience, business school, and probably if you're looking at top 10 business schools, there's probably not one of them you'd have gone to you wouldn't have enjoyed. You know.
I think so, but the having a big time football program there definitely doesn't hurt.
Well, that's a good point. I guess if you go to Duke, what are you going to do on Saturday? You're not going to go to a football game.
You got to be careful. I got a Duke grad sitting behind me right now.
Well, but he didn't go to a football game. He went to a
That's
basketball
true.
game. He was probably one of those Cameron crazies.
Almost certainly.
I think I've seen you with your shirt off.
No, but for a lot of like top business schools, they're in a big city. So say if it's in New York, a large portion of the student body kind of lived in New York before, they're going to live in New York after.
Yeah,
And because of that, they don't really make as much of an effort to branch out and meet folks. But whereas at Michigan, very few folks are from Ann Arbor or like, Southeast Michigan area. So for lack of a better word, you kind of have a captive audience. And with that, you kind of are forced to hang out with each other, which leads to I'm making it sound so negative, but it leads to like truly like authentic friendships and bonds just because you're around these folks all the time. And
yeah,
then, the football game's obviously a huge amount of fun, but having the entire student body, not just the business school, rally around, one event and one team, a
yeah,
couple Saturdays in the fall is a pretty powerful thing.
yeah. You ever heard the name Bo Schembechler?
Oh, I've heard of them.
Well, a long time ago, he was the legendary coach there. I always thought that was one of the best football coach names in the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Schembechler.
that man was born to be a football coach,
Yeah,
but we were there for the Harbaugh era, kind of during the dark days before he turned it around. We started beating up on that school down in Ohio.
yeah, those rascals. Yeah, well, that's good. So, good experience there, and then so now you've gone from West Point, one of the probably the greatest leadership training grounds in the world, to a top 10 business school, to McKinsey. And McKinsey is, it's I would think it's still the best large global consulting firm for business out there. Is that correct?
They would tell you so, and I tend to agree.
That's what the advertisement said.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
So it's funny. Sometimes when you get to be that good, the only press that gets out there is bad. People just want to bring you down because you always hear these stories about things didn't work here or didn't work there. But I'm sure it works a lot. Or people wouldn't keep using them.
Yeah, and that's the joy of using consultants. When things go well, the executives at the client company can take the credit. If it doesn't go well, the consulting firm can
McKinsey
take
did
the
it.
take.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Um, so you obviously decided you wanted to work for a large consulting company. I would think to continue to learn, how things work. Was that the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming out of business school, this entrepreneurial route was something that obviously interested me. Kind of felt like I wasn't ready for it. Obviously, business school gives you a lot of the skills and knowledge that you would need, but it's all in this kind of sterile academic environment where everything's perfect.
Right.
So the thought of doing applying some of those skills that I learned in a like a full contact environment where it's you're briefing real people, like the data's messy, you're having to navigate, egos and opinions and things like that was appealing to me. So they say that, MBA is obviously your master's in business, but consulting is kind of like you're getting your PhD.
Hmm. Hmm. And so, getting a job at McKinsey is not easy. How did that process go?
Yeah, so a good thing about going to a school like Michigan is that the consulting recruiting process is very, very well structured. It's one of those schools where the firms come to you.
Hmm.
So during the first semester of your first year, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Deloitte, EY, like everyone comes to campus, and it's kind of like a two-way recruiting process where obviously you're a student trying to get hired by them, but it's also an opportunity for them to get to know you. So during that fall, it's kind of like a bit like dating, right? Where you're trying to feel out, what they value, and if you think you'd be a good fit there, while
Hmm.
they're trying to figure out if you would be a good fit for what they have going there. So kind of interviewed with all the different consulting firms. Actually did my summer internship at another consulting firm because got the axe from McKinsey during that between your first and second year internship. But made a good relationship with the veteran recruiter from McKinsey. He was like, "Hey, I think you belong here. Like, give it another shot next year." So came back in the fall. A lot of my peers were celebrating having their full-time offers and hanging out and partying, have a good time. While I was, doing interview prep and doing math drills and, doing all that fun stuff, but ended up working out and was able to get my foot in the door.
Well, let me ask you this, because it looks like, I don't take this the wrong way, but your path has been so pure so far. I'm sure you did very well in high school, and then West Point, and then Bronze Star, business school, and all of a sudden they cut you at McKinsey.
Yeah.
How did that feel, and what did you do about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think overcoming that is, obviously the first, 24 to 48, it stung quite a bit. You wanted badly. I made it right to the final rounds and got cut. I would say like, as you say it, it seems like my resume up to that point was flawless, but I definitely dealt with failure along the way as well.
Right.
Whether it's, setbacks in the army, not getting the assignment I wanted, or, obviously West Point is a high intensity environment where there's lots of opportunities to make failures
Hmm.
big and small. So I feel like I'd gotten some reps on failure at the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
And I think always try to use those failures as a way to just kind of bounce back stronger. So coming at it like spent 24 to 48, just kind of, a little angry, a little upset of coming so close but not getting it. But I think after that time period, I spent some time reflecting on what I was still missing.
Yeah.
And I think where I landed was, was still at that point, 6, 7 months out of the army, really, like still very raw
Yeah.
in kind of the way I spoke, the way I solved problems, things like that. So it felt like there were still some areas that I could improve.
Hmm.
And was also, pretty encouraged that, despite how raw I was, I still made it, pretty damn close
Yeah.
to to hitting the goal. So gave
Yeah.
me some kind of focused areas to improve on during that summer and
Yeah.
until like the following fall.
Yeah.
And I think I'm better for it.
Well, that's an excellent point. Excellent point. I think it's worth talking about just for a moment. But you know, to of course, we're a little bit upset at first when something happens we don't want to happen. But then to say, what can I learn from this? Why did this happen?
Mhm.
And probably these people aren't doing it just to get me. I
Right.
mean, they
Yeah.
have a reason, and maybe it's because I'm too military right now. I'm still,
Mhm.
still kind of, look military person versus a consultant. And that's a very grown up thing. The other thing I'll say, I've thought about writing a book on this, but I can't tell you how many people have suffered some type of, what we would think is just a terrible setback and who have turned that into something completely different, which is 10
Yeah.
times better than the direction they were going.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
As long as you just keep the attitude and keep moving north. But if you stop and dwell on it the rest of your life, then you're done. It did defeat you.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't expect that from you at all. But I'm glad you saw that maybe that was it. You were too close to the army. You needed some time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was also fortunate to have, good people around me. Obviously, my parents are always a good support system that helped me, they provided some context around like that specific failure.
Yeah.
And also even like the final round interviewer that I worked with who like gave me the call saying, hey, like you didn't get it. It was like a very, very cool, like down to earth guy.
Yeah.
And in like typical McKinsey fashion, he's like, here are the three things that you need to do if you're going to come back next year and like reapply.
They give you a
Um,
PowerPoint?
no, no PowerPoint, just here are the three big things.
Oh, geez. Well, so you didn't get it then, but you stayed after it, and you eventually got it, and you stayed with McKinsey for how long?
About 3.5 years.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, kind of like I said, got the PhD in business. So, they say the PhD in business thing. The other thing they say is that a year in consulting is worth 3 years in industry.
Hmm.
Reason being, it's high intensity. You're kind of constantly changing mental gears, switching between projects, switching between industries, and so you're constantly having to kind of scale up on learning things and being able to walk into a room and tell people what's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so first 2 years there was an associate and then got promoted to manager. Those first 2 years, you're kind of focused on like the technical aspects
Hmm.
of being a consultant. Obviously, Excel, using other, quantitative tools to find answers in messy data.
Yeah.
And then, as you progress, they're putting you in front of clients more, and it's more kind of storytelling and selling.
Hmm. So, how many engagements did you have? How many different businesses?
Oh man. Let's see, 3.5 years. Best guess, 10 to 12.
Okay.
Kind of a mix of some of them were just kind of 6 week diligences or kind of strategy sprints,
Yeah.
and some were longer term implementations. So
Yeah.
kind of a mixed bag there, but probably 10 or 12 across probably three or four different industries, and I don't know how many functional areas.
And can you give us, without giving anything away you can't talk about, what was the best success that you and your team had?
Best success that I had. We worked with a like a polyethylene chemicals company, and we were looking at their procurement spend. So for the longest time, they kind of thought that they had, achieved maximum savings based off conversations they had with, their
Yeah.
vendors and
Yeah.
kind of other folks like around the supply chain.
Yeah.
And we came in there kind of not because they wanted us there, because of like their ownership group wanted us there. And they're like, hey, like, help us find, like, we think there's value here. Like, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Like, get to the bottom of it. And since they were in a good spot to begin with, we had to get creative of where we could find value, but there was value there. So I would say proud of that work is like the number of dollars that we identified for them to save just
Hmm.
through procurement savings was strong. But then we also did a good job of towing the line of working with the procurement managers who were kind of comfortable in the status quo while also working with the ownership group that wanted things like changed very, very differently. I think I was, a small part of that, but the partners I worked with did a great job of kind of balancing all the different stakeholders, and
Yeah.
then us on the ground did a good job of kind of helping everyone understand what value is possible.
Good. That's a good one. I've got a friend, a good friend that I have worked with before, and he was trying to sell this company, this big, I think it were a fish company or something, like $1 million project for to do something they really wanted to do, but they just didn't quite have the money. You know, they wanted to do it, they needed to have the money. Well, he said, well, let me see if I can help you save some money, and he literally did a little mini procurement project for him, and saved
Yeah.
more than enough money to pay for this project. So
Yeah,
it's
the sticker shock on consulting engagements is always very, very real.
yeah,
But then you look at the savings that they can often generate, then it's kind of like, man, we should have done this a long time ago.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Well, there's a reason people use them for sure. So
Mhm.
you had a great experience at McKinsey, which again is another 5-star piece of your resume, and you and your partner decided to start Wall Street Partners, excuse me, to buy a business, a significant business that y'all would run and build. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think I recognized that whenever I was doing the best work and happiest in my career, whether it's at the Army or with McKinsey, was when I was kind of having free reign and able to be entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
So, like for example, in Afghanistan, when I was there back in 2016, which holy cow seems like a long time ago, um, there was a hard limit on the number of troops that were allowed to be in country at any given time. And so with that, the folks that were in country were spread very, very, very thin.
yeah,
So at the time I was executive officer, so basically second in command for a, security task force company element. And my commander was like, "Hey, like I have a million things to do. You have a million things to do. Like just go figure it out and like let me know if you need anything." And so with that, I was able to kind of operate how I wanted to, when I wanted to, and kind of prioritize things the way I saw fit and solve problems, of which there were many, in whatever way made the most sense.
yeah,
But so really enjoyed that. But inevitably with the Army or with McKinsey, you're not going to be able to operate, with full flexibility all the time, only in limited stretches.
yeah,
So I was looking for something that would allow me to kind of build upon the skill set that I had in that I built in the Army and with McKinsey, but in that kind of entrepreneurial mindset where we can kind of do things our own way.
yeah. Yeah, well, heck yeah. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Having your own business. Now, let's talk about that because one of the purposes of having you on the podcast is, maybe someone who's watching might have a business that they want to sell that would be perfect for
Yeah.
you. We don't know, but why don't you tell us about what you're looking for in terms of the type of business and the size?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a private acquisition firm. We're looking to make one acquisition. Uh, Ideally, a company that we would acquire would be owned by a retiring baby boomer who has built an awesome business and wants to be basically rewarded for said awesome business that they've built. Size-wise, we have some flexibility. Generally speaking, about 6 to 30 million in revenue, maybe 2 to 6 million in EBITDA. Our sales pitch to them would be we're different than private equity. We can still, reward you and help you sail off into the sunset in whichever way you want. But unlike private equity, we'll move ourselves and our families to wherever the business is, and we'll personally run it. So the idea is to preserve the name of the company, the team that's in place, and then that business owner's legacy,
Hmm.
and allow it to be kind of like our next chapter, our full focus, rather than just being one of many dots on the map.
That's pretty good. Keep the name, keep everything where it is, and then be very flexible with the owner. Some of them want to leave immediately, some want to stay, some want to keep a piece, some want to ghost options. I mean, who knows what they want, but it's good that you can offer that to them.
Yeah, and like the flexibility you said is another huge advantage. Some owners just want to, buy their boat and literally sail off into the sunset,
Yeah,
whereas some want to stay involved in the business, and we've seen it shake out a bunch of different ways.
yeah,
Sometimes, like we spoke with a seller a few weeks ago who ran a trucking fleet, and he kind of, wanted to take his foot off the gas, no pun intended, but he was still very, very interested in like the EV trucks that they were bringing into the fleet.
yeah,
And so one of the options we gave him was like, hey, like let us run the trucking side of the business, and we'll make you the guy that's in charge of electrifying the fleet, and you
Yeah,
can run that for the business.
yeah,
So yeah, a lot of flexibility.
yeah. That's cool. And then in terms of, so geography doesn't matter, size does matter, 6 to 30 ish. And then what about type of business?
Yeah, so my background is in industrial services. Sean, my business partner's background is in healthcare. So I'd say we're looking for businesses kind of within those verticals that meet, make it favorable for first-time CEOs.
Okay.
So some of the characteristics there would be like high amount of recurring revenue, primarily through like contracts, master services agreements, things like that, and low customer concentration, so that if one customer walks out the door, your business doesn't fail.
What do you think about these companies that do uniforms? Like pick them
We love
up,
the
clean them.
Yeah. We love the linen service game. We love the laundry game. We're actually in the process of reaching out to a few companies, not that general, but a few kind of niches within some of those areas. We see a lot of value there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always wonder about those. I see the trucks all over the place, and I never worked in a business that required those.
Mhm.
But I bet you it's a good business.
You mentioned the trucks driving by. Since we started looking at doing this a little over a year ago, we've now become freaks where wherever we're walking down the sidewalk and we see, a logo on the side of a work van or a truck or something like that, be like, "Ooh, like I wonder what they do. Like where are they headquartered?
Yeah,
Oh, I think we can figure out like what their revenue is." So we've
yeah,
become
I know.
like research freaks like that every time a truck drives by.
It's unbelievable. I mean, like I don't know. It's probably 20 years ago, Jake. I was at the driving range at the club. It was like Wednesday afternoon or something, and I saw these older not older, but old, probably how old I am right now, but like in their 60s or 70s, and they're out there on Wednesday getting ready to go play golf, and I asked the pro, I'm like, tell me what these guys do. And one of them owned a bunch of convenience stores. One of them
Yeah.
made some type of industrial glue. You know, I can't remember what the other one did, but I mean, it was things that we would never even. There's no sign that says industrial glue.
Yeah.
They're out there somewhere doing something, but they got customers that pay them money every month, and they can go to the club and play golf whenever they want to.
Yeah, and it's like, the industrial glue thing made me think, as we started this too, where you end up doing deep dives into these like seemingly random like little niches.
Yeah,
So one of like the best outcomes of folks that have done something similar to us was say like billboard maintenance company, where like they would literally like
yeah,
mow the grass and
yeah,
like repair the light bulbs
yeah,
for like billboards around the country. And
yeah,
it's one of those things like intuitively like makes sense. Like I understand that they would be out there,
yeah.
but I would never think to like dig into their business model
Yeah,
like this.
yeah, it's wonderful. That's a wonderful niche. Just it's probably very little competition on a global or national basis
Mhm.
or something like that. Yeah, wow, that's so much fun to talk about these things.
Yeah.
My acquisitions are all around older industrial software companies,
Mhm.
and I tell those people, those owners, the same thing you tell them. I'm like, I'm not a PE company. I'm a software
Mhm.
guy. However you want to work it, we'll work it. Let's just give you a way out and give me a way in, and everyone will be happy.
Absolutely.
So, and it does not require me to move somewhere. I'm not able to do, but software is a little bit different. I mean, their people don't have to move either. Everyone can work from home, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a guy, a friend of mine was looking years ago to buy a bandana company. They made
Okay.
they made post a pile of bandanas right around here in Greenville, and sold them to convenience stores. And you would think that's an overseas thing, but they kind of would change them. Like maybe there's a Halloween bandana or something
Mm.
about a wrestler bandana or something. There were different little themes that people would buy, not just your standard colors. And didn't end up getting it. He did buy a cement company,
Okay.
like 20 trucks, and
Mhm.
and it was I think it was doing very well. Um,
Yeah, and it's so fun talking to those folks of like, okay, like why would you choose a bandana company and kind of
yeah,
hearing about how they think about things.
yeah,
We get to talk to a lot of business owners, and it's one of the best parts of all of this is just kind of
right,
picking their brains of how they see things and where they want to take things.
right, yeah. One of my favorites was I met a lady who owned a company down in Gainesville, Georgia, and it was a gas detection meter company. They're a
Okay.
handheld. They look like an iPhone that you'd
Hmm.
wear, and it would beep or whatever if there was gas in the mine or in the shaft or wherever they were. And they crushed it. They crushed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
those safety-driven, compliance-driven businesses are awesome where, your customers obviously have to prioritize it because a lot of times like lives depend on it.
yeah.
And oftentimes, it's outside of their specialties. They kind of can't do it in-house, or maybe due to regulations, like an outsider has to be the one doing the inspection. So we love kind of those safety adjacent, compliance adjacent businesses for
Right.
sure.
Well, so I look at a lot of different sites like Flippa, BizBuySell, some of
Mhm.
those, but I don't think I ever see one that's really big enough for you. They're typically smaller, and maybe that's because I have my parameters set for smaller. But where are you finding your opportunities?
Yeah, so some of the bigger deals will hit like those biz buy sell type websites. But we primarily source our deals through a few different ways. So the first off is just proprietary outreach. So that's us literally reaching out to business owners, trying to get them on the phone, educate them on kind of who we are, what we're trying to do, and get a feel for, what their objectives are if they're even interested in selling. And if so, do they have the characteristics that would make sense for us?
Hmm.
So that can take the form of us just emailing them. We've written letters, some of which get sent back to us. A lot of it is, just picking up the phone and calling folks, kind of a lost art.
Yeah.
And then just kind of going in person to wherever we think these folks are, so conferences and things like that.
Hmm.
So that's kind of one side of things. And the other side of things would be through brokers.
Hmm.
So BizBuySell is like a broker website, but
Yeah.
there's, ones of all kinds
Yeah.
for all sizes and all kind of niches that we work through as well. And so as part of that, a lot of it is just looking at, their online postings and seeing if there's anything interesting us and reaching out to them. But a lot of it is relationship building so that
Hmm.
hopefully, we work with a broker on a few deals that maybe don't work out, but then another similar one comes up and they're like, oh, we should call Jake and Sean to see if they'd be interested in this. And
Hmm.
so we can, get to a deal before it hits the broader market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, part of it was just having your radar up too. I mean, my father and his partner back in the day, the partner was on a board at the church. It was like the church board or something, and the guy next to him said, "Hey, Jake, you seem like a smart business guy. I want to sell my business. How do I do it?" And he says, "Let me take a look." And so they ended up buying that business and growing it into a real nice business. So
Love that.
yeah, getting out there and talking is a good thing. Do you have any of your bigger your business brokers that specialize in tech sales?
None that we're working with right now, but some definitely have that focus.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like most of the brokers you work with either have like a geographical focus where
Yeah.
they only focus on businesses in the Southeast, for example,
Yeah.
or an industry focus. So yeah, there's definitely some out there, but none that we've worked with directly so far.
And roughly, we're talking about like service businesses, kind of I would call them normal businesses. What kind of how are you figuring rough pricing on those businesses these days?
So it's typically just a straight multiple.
Hmm.
So whatever the EBIT is times, an industry kind of standard figure
Hmm.
to get to a sales price.
Hmm.
Obviously, a few things can play with that multiple. Size being probably the biggest one, where, like a small mom and pop shop may, be on the lower side, whereas a regional, like someone who owns like an entire region
Yeah.
for that niche would go a little bit higher there.
Yeah.
Other things that can impact that would be the amount of like contractual revenue versus one-time revenue, and frankly, a laundry list of other features to get to that sale price. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is just kind of like what the market is saying, where, if everyone else is buying, that type of business for a 6x multiple, then
Hmm.
that's probably what this one will go for.
Hmm.
But there's also some nuance and variation there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that back and forth piece of it kills a lot of deals where, one side thinks it's worth, some amount and the other side thinks something differently, and they can't get close enough
Yeah.
to get a deal done. But
Yeah.
again, that's where the flexibility in our model helps create common ground there, where sometimes those quantitative expectations don't quite line up.
Hmm. Yeah. I heard one buyer say that they were having success getting with the owner to agree that if I can get $12 million out of this, then we've got a deal. And they said, okay,
Mhm.
let me work with you to get
Yeah.
there. Let's see how we can get there. And maybe there's some deferred, and maybe there's this and performance and whatever. But um, if you don't have that number to begin with, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
We can help get to a place that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, one thing we found in these early days is that transparency just saves everyone's time and helps you get to a better answer
Yeah,
quicker and, a better answer overall.
right.
Yeah, and like what you'll see drive up those valuations a lot of times is if the seller believes that there's like still a lot of growth to be done,
Hmm.
and allowing them to, roll equity is a good way to be like, okay, like if you believe it, like prove it.
Yeah.
The upside is as much as you say. We think we can take it even higher than that, then like
Hmm.
this will be worth even more.
Yeah.
If not, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an easy bet for you. I mean, if people think they can help you take it higher and participate to some degree in that, and then that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Good. Okay. All right. Um, so I think we understand what you're looking for with Wall Street. You're in Chicago, but you're ready to move.
Yeah, so we're running our search out of Chicago. It's kind of the perfect place for us. You can fly direct pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
So no matter what business we're looking at, chances are once you get to O'Hare, you can fly directly there.
Yeah.
So just reliving my consultant days of
Travel.
spending a lot of time in United terminals.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Now, what if the new business is like in Key West? Will that be okay?
That'd be tough. I'd have to convince my wife that we have to move to Key West. But
What a great place
yeah,
to raise a child.
yeah, yeah.
Oh man. All right. Let's talk about a few other kind of more basic questions.
Sure.
Um, you've had a great career so far, and I think you're really just getting started. But if somebody else is, let's say, getting out of college and they want to go into business or sales, what advice would you give them?
I would say two things. One is kind of like less inspirational, one's more inspirational. The less inspirational one is just start reading the news. As I was getting out of the army, it's a piece of advice I got of, just read the Wall Street Journal every morning. It's a great way to understand what's happening in the business world. And then when you are in those environments where you're surrounded by other, corporate folks,
Hmm.
it makes it a little bit easier to talk the talk and understand the language that they make
Okay.
or that they use. And then the second piece is figure out storytelling. Um,
Hmm.
Kind of everything that we've done up to this point is storytelling, whether it's, while we're fundraising, telling the story of, how our partnership came to be and the story of, our vision for the future. And then we're talking to business owners, the telling them the story of kind of like who we are and why that story makes us fit to run their business.
Right.
So kind
Right.
of like, yeah, the,
Yeah.
the, the less interesting piece of just read the news and get smart on that. And then like softer piece of work on storytelling.
Yeah. So, how would you say someone can work on storytelling?
I would say, first, get out there. It's easier to tell stories if you have stories to tell.
Yeah.
And so if you're, getting home every night and just, on social media, you're probably, not going to have too many interesting stories to tell. But if you're getting involved in your local community, going on interesting trips, living life, you'll be better at it.
That's good. Yeah, we coach people the same way on the storytelling. Instead of like if I told you, hey, Jake, we want you to come to our money management firm because we're going to earn you, we're going to earn you probably 11%. You're going to think that sounds like BS, John. You sound like a sales guy. But if I said, Jake, I don't know if you can join us or not, but what we normally do is we work with people like Charlie and people like Mike, and we're getting there. On average, and if we look over 5 or 10 years, heck, one of them doubled their money from 400 to 800,000 over 4 years. So that's I don't know what that comes out to, but we'd love to help you with something like that. Would that make any sense? So you're seeing it Mike do it, and you're seeing it in
Yeah.
dollars versus percent. And so, yeah, I'm not sure that's the best story in the world, but
No, totally.
We like them to tell stories about other people, and it just that people believe it a lot more than if I just say, "Here's a statistic."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, and let's go Army for a second. Give us one leadership principle that you learned from your Army training and being in the Army.
I would say just be genuine. I think, in the army, a lot of people think that they have to act a certain way in order to be worthy of followership. But I think what I found is that the most authentic leaders or the most effective leaders are the ones who are the most genuine and the most authentic.
Mm-hmm.
My battalion commander when I was in Afghanistan, Neil Snyder, was like a very unassuming man. He like had kind of like he was kind of like a shorter guy, kind of like seemed like more of an academic, but then like you look at his background and he was like a true badass who was also like the smartest person in any room that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if someone like that walked into a room and tried to, puff his chest out and be, super, super intense, people probably wouldn't respond to it. But, he relied on kind of his sense of humor and his just raw intelligence to inspire followership. And he was one of
Yeah,
the best leaders I worked with because he knew what he was and leaned into it. And also didn't hurt that he was just like an overwhelmingly talented person who everyone wanted to be around and follow.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so that's kind of like a good example. And then you see folks who, maybe watched one too many episodes of Band of Brothers or something, who are just trying to be, Captain America
yeah.
when they're very much not that. And soldiers, in about 10 seconds will understand, what you really are
Mm-hmm.
and like not respect you as much if you're not being genuine to who you are.
Yeah. And it's easier to be yourself.
Totally.
You know, if you
Yeah. Seems like a lot of work to try and put on a mask every day for
right,
sure.
right, yeah, yeah. I've gone through phases like when I'm myself is not someone who dresses real nice. I don't really like to look a certain way or dress whatever. But I've gone through these little phases where I kind of get, I don't know, cocky or something, and I'll dress a certain way, and it's just horrible. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not the real John, and it's like peacocking, I guess. I don't know,
Yeah. 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 100%.
but I say be yourself, and just we have no other choice. Just let's just go with that. Let's just
Who
go
else am
with
I
that.
supposed to be? Yeah.
That's right. I want to be like Jake, but I can't because you're Jake. Um, so what made you pursue the search fund model instead of doing a startup?
hmm So I think I mentioned that the entrepreneurial path was something that interested me for a long time, and to me, the search fund model was entrepreneurship with a path to profitability and maybe like some guardrails in place. So my business partner Sean worked kind of interned, like worked at a startup during business school,
Yeah.
and for them, I'm sure I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but they raised hundreds of $1 millions. Over the course of like 5 years and hit like $10,000 in revenue just like a few weeks
Woo,
ago.
woo.
And so like that ramp is, very stressful, very challenging, and there's just so much unknown. Whereas, in the search fund model, you're, hopefully acquiring a business that's historically profitable, historically successful,
Yeah.
and you're someone who can step in and hopefully take it to new heights.
Yeah.
So, kind of like the risk reward profile that I was comfortable with. And it also allowed me to work with, these small and medium-sized businesses
Yeah.
that I think are just the best kind of people to work with.
Well, I totally agree with you. Just completely in favor of finding learning how to run a business. You better learn how to do that first, which you've done in several ways. But then getting a business that you can operate uh, is so much better than all these people at startup camp. I mean, so few of them end up with anything. They get some experience, I suppose, but I love the idea of trying to get into a business that you can handle, and it's just kind of ironic that you can sit there and tell me that it's less risky to buy a business for $50 million than to do a startup on your credit card.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, it's
Yeah.
funny, and I agree with you. It's less risky, but it's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, you could buy, you might well buy one for 50, right? I mean, that's going to be in the sweet spot if you're looking for a $30 million business.
Could be. Yeah.
Could be. All right. I think we have a deal. Um, so when you buy a business, do you already have like your 30-day plan?
We have our 100-day plan, and it's
100-day
to sit
plan.
back and listen. I
Okay.
think you hear about the biggest mistake a new Army lieutenant can make, and it's pretty similar to the biggest mistake that a new CEO or president can make, and it's showing up on day one with all the answers
Yeah.
and going and changing things. So yeah, I mean, I think those first 100 days will be a lot of listening. Um, and having our eyes and ears open and probably keeping our mouths shut. Hopefully opening our mouths when we're interviewing, the middle management as well as some like key customers, but just trying to learn everything we can about the business to, for our sake, understand, what exactly it is we bought and how we think we can improve it, but also to kind of signal humility that, we're not just going to come in here and kick doors down and break glass, but we're going to make a solution that or come up, run initiatives that make sense within kind of what the business is already doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, also having a long term view that this, you might run this thing for 40 years. What's
Exactly.
the hurry? Let's
Yeah.
take our time. Um, so what advice would you give other veterans that want to start their own or buy a business or kind of get into business on their own?
I would say just talk to as many people as you can. I know, like, sorry to go back to the well on that one. But yeah, talk to as many people as you can. I think, on social media, particularly nowadays, there's a lot of just like bad information about, how easy this is.
Yeah.
But I think if you get someone on the phone, they'll be transparent with you about kind of what's been good, what's been not so good, and what their actual experience has been like. So it's a great way to kind of learn the ins and outs of, how to exactly do the thing while also giving you a few landmines that you can hopefully avoid while you do it yourself.
Yeah. You're probably too young to remember, but a while back there was this thing where the whole craze was about buying real estate with no money down. Do you?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you could get cash back at closing. I mean, it
Hmm.
was. I guess it was a different time then. The appraisers were a little different, and the banks were a little different. And but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but even now, like some of those voices on social media are telling you can just, knock on the door of a profitable small business
yeah.
and pinky promise that you'll pay them with the next 10 years earnings and they'll be like, "Great, let's do it. Take my business." But a little more to it than that.
Yeah, there is, but I do think it's I think one thing that helps, like when you are going to buy a business from somebody, the fact that you went to West Point and served the country and worked at McKinsey, and they're going to say, well, this is a real deal here. I can talk to this person. This is not some jackleg, that hadn't done anything yet, or you know didn't go to business school, hadn't run a business. So I think that going back to our original premise of the conversation, you've prepared yourself for this moment. And when I was in my early 20s, I asked my dad, who was a venture capitalist. I said, "How? What's the secret for these people that I've met? Your friends over the years that have all become extremely successful." And he gave me a letter. He gave me a letter of like it was 10 people, and all of them all of them had the same characteristic. They all learned business, and particularly something about the business that they were in, whether it was the lumber business or finance business or whatever, but they learned it, made their contacts, and when they were about 30 or early 30s, they made their move. And
Interesting.
they got a piece of the action, they bought a business, they started a business, whatever. And then worked like hell for 20 or 25 years,
Yeah.
right? And so then they're
Mhm.
55 and all of a sudden says, "Oh my Lord, Jake's a millionaire. I want to be like Jake." Well, this has been a long-term plan. It didn't just start when Jake was 52, I mean, where you started it when you went to West Point. So I see it
Yeah.
coming, Jake. If I could buy stock in you, I would.
Thank you, thank you. But one thing I will say is that you make it seem like I have this is awesome background and have the privilege to do a couple of good things. But I would say that some of those like pieces of my background look very very good when talking with the MBA crowd or with investors. But for a lot of small business owners, it's almost like a bad thing, right?
Huh.
Where having like a big brand name of like McKinsey or like having gone to business
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can kind of cut the other way where they'll be like,
Interesting.
oh, like either like you think you know everything about my business, but you've never like gotten your hands dirty, things like that.
Yeah.
So we've had to be careful of what parts of our background we highlight when having these conversations.
Yeah.
Obviously, with with the investor crowd, it's we're playing up our backgrounds in consulting and business school.
Well,
But when talking with business owners, it's more about kind of like, who we are as people, what our families value. And, the military service is helpful there sometimes.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, to me, all those things are very cool, but everyone's not me for sure. But that's a good point. Um, okay, just a few more questions.
Sure.
These are really important. What is what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is Catch 22.
Ooh,
So it's, maybe that's like a basic answer, but read it right around the time I got back from Afghanistan, and I think it's been my favorite book ever since. It's,
very good.
World War II, Army Air Corps pilots. So it takes place during a war, but it's also a very funny, very absurd book. And so for me, when dealing with, tough times, I found that going at those tough times with a sense of humor and understanding the absurdity of everything,
Yeah,
always makes those times a little easier.
that's
So,
good. Okay, favorite movie?
favorite movie, that's a tough one. I don't know if I have like a one favorite movie.
You give me more than one.
Um, I love The Matrix because I'm a huge nerd, and it's one of those movies with great action that also is kind of makes you think. I love Superbad because it's like kind of a coming of age tale for like our generation
Yeah.
where, they're like very vulgar um laden experiences in that movie are similar to like my experiences in high school and other folks my age. So I'd say those are two of my
Okay,
favorites.
good. That's good. And then favorite band.
Favorite band, that's another one where it's hard to just pick one. So I'll just go Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay, so you like Flea.
Yeah, he's all right.
Well, is there anything else you want to say or promote before we finish up?
I would say, even if you're not sure, if you think Sean would be a good fit to run your business, would love to talk to you on the phone for 5, 10 minutes, tell you a little bit more about our vision and how we could plug into what you're doing. Similarly, if someone you know is approaching the retirement age and has built an awesome small business, we'd love to chat with them. If you want to learn more about us, you can find us online, wellstreetpartners.com. We're also on LinkedIn, and John, maybe I'll give you that info to
Yeah,
drop in the
yeah,
podcast
yeah,
description. But
yeah.
we love talking to folks, even if you're still kind of kicking the tires on retirement. We'd love to chat.
All right. Well, and I would encourage anyone who's even thinking about it in the next couple of years to talk to Jake. He's a great young man, and he and his partner are going to do a good job with someone's business. So, Jake, thank you so much. You have to promise me to come down to Greenville and stay with us and
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
hang out, and we'll tell some more stories.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you.